I first noticed the construction when the dust started drifting across my fence line like a bad omen. Trucks rolled in before sunrise, concrete mixers groaned all day, and within weeks, wooden frames began rising where my grandfather's land had always sat untouched. 35 houses, all lined up neatly, as if someone had drawn them their with a roller and a sense of entitlement. At first, I assumed it was a mistake. Developers make them all the time. So I drove down to the site trailer and asked the man in the crisp polo shirt which parcels they'd purchased. He smiled politely, pulled out a glossy map, and tapped the shaded area. My shaded area. That land was acquired through the Ho, he sighed, as if that explained everything. I told him it hadn't been sold. Ever. My family had owned it for 3 generations, and I still paid tax on every inch. He nodded again, less politely this time, and suggested I take it up with the association's legal team. The legal team didn't answer my emails. The whole board didn't return my calls. When I finally attended one of their meetings, the room went quiet the moment I introduced myself. The president, a woman with a practiced smile, told me my land had been classified as unused flood-adjacent property and absorbed into a development agreement years ago. I asked for the agreement. She said it was confidential. Construction continued. Foundations were poured. Families toured model homes. A banner went up advertising luxury living by the water. That part almost made me laugh. Almost. What they didn't know, what no one bothered to research, was why my grandfather bought that land in the first place. It wasn't for farming or building. It was for control. Back in the 1900s, a small private dam had been built upstream to regulate seasonal overflow into the valley. It wasn't flashy, and over time, it faded from public conversation. The county outsourced its management decades ago. The land around it changed hands. But the rights to operate and regulate the flow, those stayed exactly where they'd always been. With my family. I dug out the old documents from a metal filing cabinet that hadn't been opened in years. Deeds. Water rights. Maintenance agreements signed by officials long retired. Everything stamped, notarized, and legally binding. I sent copies to the Ho. They sent me a letter accusing me of intimidation. That's when I realized this wasn't ignorance. It was arrogance. They assumed no one would ever challenge them, and even if someone tried, they'd fold under pressure. Instead, I contacted an attorney who specialized in land and water law. He read the paperwork twice, then looked up and sighed. They built where they absolutely shouldn't have. A formal notice went out. A cease-and-desist. Another request for dialogue. Ignored. By the time the last roof went on, the president was giving interviews about their vision for the community. Standing behind him, the water shimmered calmly, exactly as it always had. And that calm? It was conditional. The letter from my attorney finally got their attention, but not in the way I expected. Instead of cooperation, the Ho doubled down. They claimed my documents were outdated, irrelevant, unenforceable. They insisted the development had all necessary approvals and that any dispute would be handled in court if necessary. So we went to court. The judge didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply asked the House counsel on a question. Did you verify operational control of the dam upstream before approving this construction? Silence. I watched the confidence drain from the room as the engineer testified next. He explained, in careful, boring detail, how the development sat squarely within a managed overflow zone. How that zone was safe only under regulated conditions. And how those conditions depended entirely on the operator. Me. The judge ordered an immediate review and temporary compliance with original land use agreements until ownership and liability were resolved. In plain terms, that meant the Ho had to stop pretending control they didn't have. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply followed the agreement as written. The seasonal flow adjustment, scheduled, documented, approved decades ago, went into effect the following week. Exactly as it always had, long before anyone thought luxury homes belonged there. Water moved where it was meant to move. Not violently. Not dramatically. Just enough to remind everyone that rules don't disappear because someone ignores them. Panic spread faster than water ever could. Homeowners demanded answers. Insurance companies started asking questions the hall couldn't answer. Emergency meetings were called. Fingers pointed in every direction. Suddenly, I was getting phone calls. The hall president asked if we could work something out. Developers offered settlements. Lawyers suggested compromises. All of them spoke as if these were an unfortunate misunderstanding. I reminded them it wasn't. It was a choice they made, one that ignored clear boundaries and legal warnings. In the end, the court ruling was simple. The land was mine. The rights were mine. The liability was theirs. The hall was dissolved within months. The homes were vacated, resold, or removed under court supervision. The land returned to what it had always been, a controlled space, respected for what it was, not what someone wished it to be. Sometimes I walk the property line at sunset. The weather is quiet again. Peaceful. Obedient to the same rules it's followed for generations. People ask me if it was worth it. I tell them the truth.